fellow e-commercers, I hope you have had a wonderful time so far and that you're ready for one more perspective on modern e-commerce. Well, my name is Tina, and I am here to share the story of Salling Group and how we've adopted MAP principles to support our journey towards scalable e-commerce. We first set out to re-engineer our e-commerce stack with the purpose of lowering operational costs, thereby ensuring that when we grow e-commerce-wise, we would be able to achieve the growth without compromising profitability. We also wanted to leverage our business opportunities from all the mobile device traffic better, because we saw that both CVR and basket size from mobile traffic was lower than what we saw from our desktop channels. And with mobile accounting for more and more of our traffic, we needed to change that. Furthermore, we wanted to make it easier to recruit new developers to the team. So important for us at Salling Group because we rely entirely on an in-house development setup. So before we started, we were stuck on a non-upgradable monolith, which was not wonderful for team motivation and also made it really hard to attract new talent. And ultimately, we wanted to reduce time to market, not just in terms of what it takes to carry out a release, but throughout the entire CI pipeline. So from first line of code and up until it's deployed. With our new stack, we've achieved everything. Operational costs were cut by 75%. We have the luxury of several skilled applicants to choose from whenever we have open positions in the team. Our sites perform excellent on mobile devices. And on top of it all, the site and the stack has supported the growth in online business, which I think most of us have seen during the pandemic without breaking its back. So in terms of time to market, we've reached a state where we can and do release multiple times a day. We have a really good QA routine in place, and we've configured our release tool to make it as automated, as simple as possible. So we did it, basically. And this could be the shortest presentation ever, or I could offer you guys a different perspective on that. So what if it's not just about the technology, but also how you enable your organization to collaborate around the opportunities created by this technology? What if we're only as good as the purpose we share? During the initial phase of our MACH transformation, when it was still about defining stack components and creating budgets, we had a discussion. Someone presented the idea based on insights from other companies working with this e-commerce transformation that time to market of the initial project could be lowered substantially by focusing on this as a digital-only project. So only looking at the digital aspects required for implementation. So basically, don't let the rest of the business have a say with the complexity that normally arises out of that. Just focus on technical simplicity. So that was an interesting thought. Being able to fast forward the implementation, not having to listen to people with other perspectives and priorities than your own, without a doubt, that would make the initiation and delivery phases of the project much faster and much more simple from a governance perspective. But I wonder how it would work for the actual launch of the new stack. How would that be received by our organization if they had had only very little say in the final product? So a couple of pros and cons later, we decided to go with what was ultimately a gut, but also really the only thing you can do in a company like Salling Group, where we take a lot of pride in our ability to take on new challenges as a team across all functions. No shortcuts. If we were to succeed with this, we would have to involve everyone who will ultimately be part of the change. So as a result, we engaged with 5 product owners covering each their business area. So we had one for brand, one for master data, one for the purchase journey, one for order management, customer service, and one for infrastructure. And they were the core of making the choices on how far to take each feature, balancing time, cost, and value. This didn't just get us some new friends around the organization. Well, it did that too, but it also enabled us to simplify existing workflows and eliminate redundant work alongside delivering a new e-commerce stack. So ultimately, win-win. It took us 15 months to launch the first webshop, which is twice as long as other commercetools project and reference cases. But when we did, we were cheered on by all parts of the organization that had been involved with product owners. And that felt really good. But still, there were some that we had missed out on after all, not because they weren't relevant, but simply because we had probably not been sufficiently knowledgeable about their work, what they do, and how it would be impacted by the change that we did. So they were not too happy, and they had probably a more critical approach towards our launch, which was completely fair. And the learning of this is that, well, now next time we'll remember to include those parts of the organization as well when we do digital changes. So really good in future reference. So what I would like you guys to take away from this presentation is that we're as good as the purpose we share. And I would like to share some more perspective on how and when working with purpose can really help you navigate all the choices and opportunities brought to you by MACH. So what's so special about MACH that it makes choices more important? Well, in my experience with the new stack at Salling Group, most requests can be accommodated within a reasonable effort and investment. So choosing the right focus and going about it holistically is our new challenge. Historically, before we launched our new platform, e-commerce development was driven from this inside-out perspective. So some departments wanted to have more product data, some wanted to change communication flows, some wanted to implement new features that they'd seen on other web shops. And the development team took all of these tasks in some kind of order dependent on expected business value and tried to make everyone happy. So development initiatives were pointing in multiple directions. And ultimately, there weren't a lot of measurable indicators in terms of if we actually achieved a positive effect out of the changes made. We celebrated whenever we did a new release, cake was deployed, and then it was on to the next task. So here, I would like to introduce you to a little different concept. It's from the systemic coaching paradigm, and it's called Around the Big. The takeaway from Around the Big is that different people can look at the same thing, yet see very different things. So in the case of the pig, if you have a farmer, that guy is going to see pig as business. The painter would see it as an art object. The wolf would see it as dinner. The veterinarian will see a patient, and the butcher will see meat. So if you imagine that your web shop is that big, buyers will see a window to products, profit and loss owners will see business, marketing will see their brand, customers will see a place to shop, developers will see the technology behind, stores will see a digital window to their stores, and SEO teams will see the details enabling them to rank the site on Google. So all of these perspectives are true. All of them must be considered, and all of them represent different purposes. Attract customers, protect your brand, achieve sales targets, drive footfall to stores, merchandise products, show inspirational content. So how do we gather this into one purpose that will help us choose between ideas, that will help us focus our development efforts? Well, the purpose has to be abstract enough to cover it all, yet concrete enough to be a lighthouse. So for us at Salling Group, we focus on convenience for customers as the key driver for the choices that we make. And we've deployed a new split testing approach to support it. We can do server-side split testing for the initiatives that affect our critical commerce components, like basket and checkout. And we can do client-side split testing for the more graphical touches, like placements of buttons and enhancements of UI elements. So when we work with these tests, we first of all select the tests that support our purpose. And second of all, we get direct feedback from our customers by deploying the test next to the baseline and splitting the traffic between the two variants. So the one that our customers prefer will win. And experience with this approach has made choosing and also calibrating the purpose behind our platforms and how we work between functions within Salling Group so much easier. We've made great ideas come to life, and we've abandoned ideas that simply weren't great, no matter how cool we thought they were before we tested them. And all of these choices are supported by not only the full team, but the full organization. So that's the power of data, and it rocks. So back to we're as good as the purpose we share. We just talked about it from an output perspective and how to calibrate our different purposes towards convenience for customers. So now I would like to share some stories on how we work with it from a development team perspective. I'd actually like to start before Salling Group, back when I had just started engineering school. The line I had selected was headed up by this guy called Headless. He was a tech genius with imagination and skills that enabled him to work with all kinds of inventions. But what he really did that was different to anyone I'd ever met before was gathering people around an identity, a purpose which was more like a feeling than a specific goal. From day one, he would tell my entire team of fellow engineering students how special we were, how he had handpicked us for this education, and how we were going to change the field of engineering. We studied Daniel Goleman, Belbin, Myers-Briggs, not typical engineering traits, but all perspectives that would really enable us to work so well together. And all of this in our first semester, because he believed that only through acknowledging and treasuring our differences would we be able to innovate together. He talked about his team of teachers as the dream team and treated everyone with professional respect and true interest. So as a result, ideas were generated within this group of people and pursued, ranging from acoustic improvement furnitures over attractions for a science fun park, over to hydrogen-fueled vehicles, and students were volunteering across all school activities, and the will to succeed with whatever we were doing was shared between students and teachers. So how does that map into e-commerce? Well, back to present time, this whole hence approach crossed my mind when we started up our MACH journey at the Salling Group. The main difference, however, I gathered was that as a fresh student, there's so much you don't know that you're willing to believe that you can do anything. Whereas as an e-commerce professional, you are probably painfully aware of the complexity that you'll need to handle with a new set of tools. So we went for a more of a Pippi Longstocking approach to team purpose. So for those of you who have read this story by Astrid Lindgren, you'll know it's about this red-haired, horse-riding, monkey-owning orphan. And her motto is, I've never done that before, so I'll probably rock at it. So for the team, the purpose became, let's show each other that we can do this. Now, retrospectively, that doesn't really map into the whole convenience for customers purpose that came later. And what happened was that while we were busy showing each other that we could make this new platform work, we could make all of these new technologies, we could deploy them on this new infrastructure, we lost sight of some other teams, like, for instance, the team working with SEO, who were quite critical in securing a lot of organic traffic to our site. So as a result, a company, external company, was engaged with that made this SEO report on the new site very short time before we were planning on launching it. The report basically failed the new site on SEO relevant parameters. And so for the development team, it wasn't exactly a welcome perspective on the we did it feeling that has just started to emerge as we got closer to launch. So again, we realized that what had to be done was calibrating our purpose, working closely together with the SEO experts. The report was split into relevant and irrelevant subjects, and we had a focused effort to make a quick turnaround on the findings. And we could go live. But the whole experience would have been so much better if that purpose calibration had happened upfront. So that way, everyone could have skipped the criticism and gone directly to success. I actually recently applied this learning to my personal life, where, as it turns out, it's just as relevant. Sometimes I want to drive places that are more than 30 minutes away from my home, and that seems to be the far limit of how long my kids can sit still without a device to entertain them. As most of you probably know, staring down at a device while you sit in a moving vehicle is the straight line for car sickness, at least for children. So my desire to explore distant venues and my kids' desire to maximize screen time has now been calibrated with the introduction of iPad holders. Through the introduction of this feature that nobody were able to articulate as a need to begin with, everybody gets what they want. So calibration happens through conversations and creating new ideas together, mutual involvement. All right, so back to we're as good as the purpose we share. We just talked about it from an output perspective, how to calibrate our different purposes towards convenience for customers. We also discussed how to work with it from a collaboration perspective and making sure that when we succeed together. Now, I would like to add the perspective of the importance of the organization that is required to lift the entire customer experience. We already covered generating traffic and working with customer experience throughout the web shop, but that's only half the story. The other half is what our customers experience through the fulfillment process and reverse logistics. So let me take you back to Black Friday 2020. AKA, this was the first Black Friday for our new MACH-enabled stack, supporting 4 new web shops. We had prepared many Black Fridays in Salling Group ever since the concept was introduced in Denmark back in 2013. And we have quite a mature playbook in place in terms of considerations and preparations to be on top of before the event. The playbook covers all possible events of the web shop not being able to serve customers or data changes. So how do we ensure that all components of our infrastructure is scaled to handle the massive increase in load? And how do we make sure that it continues to run smoothly, that prices are perfect, fallback scenarios for unexpected outages, and so on, all of them planned, and we have a plan in place. So there was a lot of stake this year. So far, all web shops had been running smoothly throughout the year on the new stack, but Black Friday would be the ultimate test in terms of scalability. So all focus, because this was a new site and the new stack, was towards being able to handle the expected traffic to the site. Not once was it discussed what would happen if we actually got a massive amount of orders after the orders were placed. That was implicitly business as usual. We have a pretty vast fulfillment setup at Salling Group, and we've never experienced that has been challenged in any way. The night of Black Friday came. Everybody were holding their breaths, and it was a great success. We sold and kept selling products, and all of our expectations were superseded in terms of how much traffic we would get, but also, in terms of would this stack actually be able to support it. It was a great success. We laughed, we high-fived, we jumped on the spot, then we went home to get some well-deserved sleep. And the next day, we woke up to realize that with the amount of products sold, it would actually be extremely difficult for us to deliver everything before Christmas. And bear in mind, Black Friday was last year at the end of November. So this is when all of the conversations started that we could just as well have prepared in our playbook how to boost click and collect so we could still keep selling, but directing the customers to the store so that they could pick up their own items. Working with search rankings so that we could boost products through the filters that engaged with either what was available in the stores or what were available through some of our third-party providers. We could have worked with where and when to deploy different messages to customers regarding delivery times to make sure that we would not disappoint anyone. And all of this is now also part of the playbook. And for future reference, we will remember to include the entire value chain in the preparations because e-commerce is no longer a bottleneck for sale. So we're as good as the purpose we share. The more we learn, the more aspects are included in this purpose. We calibrate and evolve our purpose, and the more we include, the better we get at bringing convenience to our customers. We're really happy with where our MACH journey has brought us so far. We've lowered our operational costs, we've reduced time to market for new features, we've made it easier to recruit talented employees, and we've vastly improved our mobile experience. So this year, our hard work also resulted in the German Retail Award for Best Connected Retail Solution, which was, again, a really nice occasion to celebrate, high five, and acknowledge all the work and thought and dedication that have gone into this whole project. And we're just getting started. The e-commerce field will continue to grow, and we will continue to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina, so much for giving this presentation. I agree. The Retail Award was pretty fun. I remember you, I think you emailed me or called me and said, hey, are you game for even applying there and just presenting what we do? If I remember correctly, you had your whole team kind of excited with you kind of working through this, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was European standard, right? So totally moving out of just the constraints of being in a small country like Denmark. So yeah, that was a pretty cool hype in the team.
Very cool, very cool. I have a first question coming in. Did the shift towards MACH have an impact on how your team viewed or utilized Agile?
Well, actually, we did less of structured Agile after we moved into MACH. We have much less need for the planning aspects of Agile. So the whole being strict on ceremonies and estimation processes and all of those things, we're actually loosening up on that and relying much more on just the informal collaboration. Of course, we still do it to some extent, but we don't spend as much time on it anymore.
Interesting. Is the MACH architecture the key to creating a frictionless customer experience?
No. No, really, it's not. The frictionless.
Now you have to explain yourself.
Well, yes, of course. But I think the frictionless customer experience comes out of how you facilitate your customer journey through your front end. And you can do a lot of cool stuff there without being MACH enabled. Then maybe you'll have performance issues, or maybe you'll have longer time to market. But the graphical and how you sort of hold the customer's hands throughout the purchase journey, that's not just MACH. That's good UX. So that's something you put on top, in my view.
So, no, I mean, not that my opinion matters much, but I think you're right. A lot of what customer experience is happens in the front end, obviously. I wonder if, like, you're just casually saying this, maybe you have performance issues. It's kind of fun. That sounds kind of key to me to have the right performance. It's interesting, kind of to hear your perspective on that.
Yes, well, of course, when we work with customer experience, we actually have two tracks. We have our conversion rate optimization, which is the split testing I was talking about. And then we have our performance track, where we've actually implemented Google's Lighthouse as part of our release pipeline, so that we assess the performance impact of all of the builds that we create. And we can also choose to do or not to do based on that. But I mean, you can do headless commerce without doing MACH, right? It's like two different things. So headless helps definitely, because that gives you the options to orchestrate it in a way that makes the front end flexible. But what you have behind that is, yeah.
I agree. It's only, quote unquote, a piece of it, the headless in the MACH, and there's much more to it. Yeah. I fully agree. You mentioned a benefit of MACH though, and you said it's easier to recruit new employees. Why is that specifically?
Because it's just so much more flexible and fun. Like when I, for instance, recruit new people last time, most of their current work was being done on Java 8. They were sort of stuck in this unupgradable situation because everything was just sort of intertwined in their current stack. And we're right ahead of upgrading to Java 16. So you just get much more of the things that people enjoy, that they can actually work with the newest technologies rather than knowing that it's out there but still being stuck on something that's like 5 years old. It attracts people who are not just in it for a job, but that are in it because they're really passionate about what they do.
We briefly touched this earlier this morning in the Q&A with Mark and Laura with Boohoo. Would you say again that having kind of passion in the team, the team members being engaged with this, being a key part of how you succeeded over the past couple of years of bringing so much online? Yes,
totally. Yes. We have had a situation before we went on this journey where we were not able to keep people on the team. Motivation was low. And when motivation is low, things also tend to drag out for longer periods of time. Now it's like you jump into the office every morning and you're met with smiles, and people have learned how to work together on this new stack that they've basically created from scratch, right? And that just gives you a whole other level of teamwork.
And yeah, well, I was kind of a leading question again. It was this morning as well. I knew the answer. I mean, we've been working together for a while, but I think it's so important to hear this out loud. There's much more than just tech to something like going MACH. There's organizational changes and everything, which I think you pointed out perfectly. I got a compliment in, and I'm hoping I get the quote from your talk right. You said something like, "We are as good as the purpose we share," and someone wrote that I don't know who it was, that they just loved the sentence. So, is there anything you wanna add to that, or should we just leave it as is?
Well, it's a core thing, and I love the idea, and I work based on the idea. Because e-commerce is not just a digital team. E-commerce, no matter if you are omni-channel or if you're a pure player, it really covers the full value chain. And you can do so much for improving your business with small details if you're just aware of the impact. So really it is involvement and making sure that everybody knows, what are the options that we have through our digital channels so that we can together sort of lift the level of how we work with e-commerce.
Well, lifting the level is exactly, I think, what everyone wants to do. Thank you, Tina, so much for being here today, for giving this talk and answering a couple of questions.
Thank you for the opportunity, Lauke.